Something that is sorely lacking today in the world of wrestling is stables. We have the Bullet Club and they rock, but even if it's taken a group of guys that need a helping hand and sticking them together, it's a great tool in progressing somebody's career. The other issue is that today in WWE especially, these teams are usually formed as a means to an end. Dogs of War, for example. Not even their name lasted more than a week, and the trio themselves seem done and dusted already. It's not so bad, given Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler and Braun Strowman don't really need each other, but there are plenty other performers that do. It's not like this is anything new, however, because of course it isn't. It happens all the time, even if it's gone so quickly, your brain can't retain that information. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 short-lived wrestling stables you totally don't remember. Number 10, the New Brood. There should be a rule in wrestling that you never put the word new in front of anything. It's the ultimate way to ruin a team's run before it's even begun, because all you're doing is reminding fans how good the original carnation were. When it comes to the Brood, it was even more stupid. After doing what it was set up to do, namely get Edge and Christian over, WWE thought they could get lightning to strike twice by just replacing the pair with the Hardys. It was weird. Lasting barely 2 months, the problem was fans just wanted to see Jeff and Matt for who they were at this stage. They didn't need Gangrel or the fancy entrance, even though said entrance was awesome. But we'd seen it all before with two dudes who didn't exactly look too dissimilar to who had come before. It was easy to see through, hence why within 8 weeks the Hardy Boys were back doing their own thing. Also, the New Brood. What a ridiculous name. Number 9, Vince's Devils. Honestly, even I had to Google this because I have no memory of it whatsoever. And after looking it up, I think I was better being left in the dark. But if I'm going down, well, you're coming with me. But yes, in 2005, when Vince McMahon just decided he wanted to surround himself with the likes of Tori Wilson, Candice, Michelle and Victoria, for obvious reasons, they also got the collective name of Vince's Devils. I don't know why either. Hilariously, the idea here was that the trio would manipulate McMahon, even though that just seemed to see Vinnie Mac making out with all of them. Wilson, Michelle and Victoria would also bully the other women on the roster before they split after an argument over a Playboy editorial. The mid-2000s were a very different place. There was also a pillow fight at WrestleMania 22, and amazingly, McMahon wasn't the special guest referee for that one, which genuinely shocks me. Although now I've remembered all the different parts to this, gonna go and forget about it again. Number 8, the World Elite. On paper, this was good. Eric Young would scour the globe looking for the best talent there was before bringing them all together and taking over TNA. For a reason nobody knows, Kevin Nash was also included in this despite the fact he was feuding with Young. The other issue with this inclusion was Nash being a major star overshadowed everyone else in the group and meant by and large it was all about him. Within 6 months the idea had run out of steam and it was shelved, which was probably best for everybody involved. This felt very much like the B version of the NWO back in the day, and nobody wanted that then, let alone almost 10 years later, in a different company. Number 7, King Booker's Court. The name alone underlines that this should have been more successful than it was. The King Booker character was amazing, and trying to use that to get others on the WWE map just made sense. Plus it was ridiculous, and when done right, that's always a success in the world of wrestling. And sure, William Regal and Fit Finlay didn't need the rub from Booker T, but they had all the attributes to make this band of madmen an utter triumph, except they weren't given any time back in 2006. I'm not really sure what WWE was expecting. It had extra oomph to it too, because in the ring, Finlay and Regal could go. So not only were they able to ham it up backstage in whatever skit was thrown their way, but when it was time to fight, they were legit tough guys. How is that not a concept that should have lasted at least a year? It didn't, as I'm sure you figured out, and it's now an underutilized stable that even WWE admitted when putting together a collection for the network. As they were in charge of all of this, well, I don't even know anymore. Go and give it some retroactive love only to cement this idea that Regal is so much better than he gets credit for. The man could do it all. Number 6, the Union. A group I only remember because of their entrance music. The real irony here is that we will never get an actual union in the WWE, though this is as close as we'll ever come. Formed in early 1999 and consisting of Mankind, The Big Show, Test and Ken Shamrock, these four were sick of Shane McMahon's exploits in the corporate ministry, so left to form this union to oppose his maniacal ways. It was as dry as anything and fell apart when creative clearly had no ideas what to do with them, the highlight being that originally WWE wanted to call them Up Yours, or the Union of People You Order Respect, son. The Union didn't even last a month and I'm not that surprised. The Attitude Era was renowned for this kind of stuff anyways, and how was this actually going to catch on? There were little to no redeeming features, other than that theme tune, as noted Generic 101. Number 5, Dudes with Attitudes. The name alone lets you know what era we're talking about here, but in 1990 Sting had a problem. He was heading for a fight with WCW champion Ric Flair at the Great American Bash, but knew his odds were skewed given that the Nature Boy was backed up by the Four Horsemen. In short, he needed his own group. Looking through his friend list to see who would fit the bill, he picked 7 members, which is overkill, and that was the Steiners, El Giante, Lex Luger, Paul Orndorff, and the Junkyard Dog. This was literally done for only a few weeks of TV, as post the Bash they disbanded. So yes, in short, the babyface chose more wrestlers than he needed to get an upper hand over the heels before taking the championship. We can barely call this a stable, really. It was more like an alliance of convenience to justify why the Horsemen couldn't pull off their usual antics, so at least it made sense. Number 4, the Cosmic Wasteland. If you ever wanted to know why Cody Rhodes decided to leave WWE and go out on his own, this is probably a good place to start. If it wasn't bad enough being teamed with the Ascension, which WWE had already made very clear weren't going to get pushed, it was just doubling down on the Stardust gimmick, which Cody was more than tired of. What else was he meant to do? Fair play to Rhodes though, he embraced this character with as much gusto as anybody could and made it work, or at least did in my eyes. If nothing else, he was damned entertaining with it. The problem, however, as stated, was how all these three had been treated. The audience had already pigeonholed them, and putting them together just made it even worse. Then there was the idea of it. I think they were meant to be from outer space or from a comic book. I don't know. It's an act that would have likely worked in the mid-90s, but in 2015 was just filler on whatever show needed said filler. It was also another kick in the teeth for the Ascension, who were really good in NXT. In many ways, they should have stayed there forever. Still, if this helped Cody pack his bag and leave, and it's one of the best things ever. Number 3, Deadpool. Continuing this obsession WCW seemed to have with taking Marvel characters and applying the idea in whatever way possible to their television show, in 1999 we got Deadpool. It had nothing to do with the hero and instead was a faction built around Raven, Vampiro and the Insane Clown Posse. How odd is that? In the least shocking news to happen that year, it barely lasted a wink, as Raven looked bored to tears as he dreamt of a return to ECW. He followed this wish, leaving the group in disarray, if you can call it that, which left the others to rethink their idea and become the Dark Carnival instead, which may actually be an even worse name. Nothing will be more terrible than what they were called for about a day, which was the Necro Ward. All in all, this lasted a month, which in World Championship Wrestling terms must have felt like forever back then. Clearly the idea was to tap into the nostalgia of Raven's flock, but that certainly didn't happen, most because that flock was good. Number 2, Apple. Technically this should be APPLE, given that it means the Allied People powered by loathing everything that you stand for, which has gotta be the title for anything in history. Also, Apple was comprised of Santino Marella, Evan Bourne, Mark Henry, and of all the people, Daniel Bryan. Now, to be fair, this was a one-match joke back in April 2011 that had some gravitas given how Marella could seemingly make anything work, and yeah, it was a jab at Wade Barrett's The Core. Because you know, Core, Apple, I'm not explaining it. They marched to the ring ready to kick some ass and instead found out that forming a faction isn't that easy, or successful, because Heath Slater pinned Santino to make their record 0-1. I have a feeling that will never change too, because it's unlikely we'll ever see Apple back on either Raw or SmackDown. The reasons are pretty obvious. Number 1, the Magnificent Seven. When WCW was about to die forever, this was clearly one of the ideas to save it. Following the Sin pay-per-view in January, Ric Flair arrived on the scene to reveal he was going to form the best group ever, featuring himself, the Steiners, Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell, Jeff Jarrett, and World Warrior Animal. Their goal? Simple. To make sure Kevin Nash didn't become the new world champion. And again, this is why the company died. Nobody was ever going to focus on fresh talent. To be fair though, the idea was at least interesting and shoved all these legends together so they couldn't dominate the whole show. By this time, however, WCW basically had no manager, so they just came and went as they pleased with no real direction. Trying to actually believe they were important was hard. 2 months later it was canned, because of course, as the Nature Boy went back to feuding with his long-term nemesis Dusty Rhodes before Nitro closed down entirely. With all this in mind, you're utterly forgiven for forgetting about the Magnificent Seven. Know of any other wrestling stables people totally don't remember? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.